collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, a festival this weekend celebrates Cyprus Black Gold.
Carrots have so many vitamins, calcium and other minerals that they can be complete food. People can live on it.
Children's drawings from Poland during the Nazi occupation and from modern-day Ukraine highlight the trauma of war.
Showing fear, showing despair, showing lack of hope. But on the other hand, as you say, it's a kind of a catharsis that through the drawing the emotions come out, and they also at some point show hope for the better future.
And why are vulnerable sectors of the workforce not going to get the minimum wage?
The answer, the minister gave when he was asked the question, the answer was, my anti-Mandria cannot pay them salary.
After the summer break in Cyprus, it's fairly traditional for the villages all over the island to hold festivals. A lot of these are associated with food, which is a very important part of Cypriot culture. Coming up on the 11th of September, in the picturesque Anoira village between Limassol and Paphos, is the Pastelli festival. Well, we are joined by Iula Michailidou to tell us all about Pastelli, what it is. And Iula, first of all, I want to know, is this a particularly Cypriot food? Because I've not heard of it elsewhere.
Yes, it is very traditional, very Cypriot, and Anoira is the only village which they do the pastelli in the old traditional way, something that we are going to demonstrate during the festival.
So when you say the old traditional way, it is made elsewhere now, presumably what, in factories?
Well, yes, it can be done in factories, but during the festival we are going to show how it is done by hand, which is a very complicated and a very time-consuming procedure, but also beautiful to see because you see all the colors of the black gold, as they call the carops in Cyprus, and there is a reason why they call them the black gold. They become the golden pastelli of Anoira. So just imagine the carob juice and the carob syrup, which is almost black, to become in a gold color, how much time is needed and how much effort is needed.
And how do they make that transition from black to gold?
By hand. It's a long procedure, which I think it's worth to see it. It's going to be demonstrated at 11 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And all your audience is very much welcome to come and attend and then taste it, of course.
Now, I read somewhere that the syrup is evaporated until it's thick and then stretched. So I'm trying to wonder how you stretch a syrup.
Well, again, this is something very technical, which I think is good if you come and see it on the spot. This is not my specialization. A lady who is expert on that, she's going to be there and she's going to demonstrate it. I want to speak a little bit about the festival and the way the festivals are changing in Cyprus. I think it's something interesting for your audience to hear as well, because we are entering a new era where festivals become more thematic. That means that all the exhibitors are going to have something which is related either to carob or to pastelli. There's going to be a big educational part through the workshops that people can attend. And also we are trying to restore and preserve our cultural heritage through these festivals. So you said correctly that there are a lot of festivals related with food, but we see more the food as a cultural heritage, and this is how we are trying to promote it. So we want the visitors to have a complete experience, all their senses to be fulfilled during this visit, and also to acquire a new skill, to learn something new.
Okay, let's talk about the history of carobs, because the black gold as well came from the fact that they were a hugely important part of our trading history since forever, I think.
Exactly, yes. It's called black gold because it was the main thing that Cyprus was exporting. It's a very nutritious thing which people were using, especially in time of wars, as a substitute for sugar, as sugar was a very scarce commodity during this time, but also something very nutritious. I mean, in Greece they call it the food of the war because carrots have so many vitamins, calcium, and other minerals that they can be a complete food. I mean, people can live on it. So, as you have correctly said, Cyprus was exporting so much to many parts of Europe, which was used in many ways, and this was bringing a lot of money to the island. So this is why it was called, we are still calling it the black gold of Cyprus.
Well, it's interesting. I want to talk in a minute about the way that I know the University of Cyprus has been involved in trying to plant more carob trees and indeed protect them from rats, which love the carob fruit. But if we talk about, as you said, the health-giving properties, I think I'm right in saying that it's gluten and caffeine free. Is that right?
Exactly. So we can make so many products out of it. Even coffee, we can substitute chocolate. So even people who have sugar intolerance or some problems with the sugar, they can consume it. And we can even do things for babies and animals. So these are some of the parameters that the university was examining. And also, I read somewhere that a lot of the professors were studying because their parents were exporting carobs at that time. So that was their main income, and that was the reason they have been able to study. So that was another reason that they were very sensitive to this idea, and they were trying to promote it as much as they can. We are working very closely with the university and, of course, all the people who are dealing with the carobs and products which are made with carobs. And this is the whole idea of the festival, to bring everybody together, the scientific community, the producers, the people who live there, the artisans, everybody working under one umbrella, the umbrella of black gold of Cyprus.
Well, I know that it contains vitamins A, B and B2 and apparently 4 times more calcium than milk. So it's good for vegans. And am I right in also thinking that back in the day it was used as a traditional medicine to treat bronchitis?
Yes, you are very right. And actually at the festival we are going to have a syrup which is going to be made by a local lady who has a base the carob syrup to use it for bronchitis or any problems with the lungs.
And it used to be used, I think, as well in the making of film for cameras. I'm sure I remember that from somewhere.
These are the seeds. The seeds are very much, you can do many things with the seeds of the carob. One of the first uses was to measure the carrots, because all the seeds, they have the same weight. So they have been using measuring the carrots in gold. So when it says 9 carat or 18 carat or 24 carat, they use the seeds of the carobs as a measurement to measure this. And also, yes, it can be used, as you said, for the films, etc. There are many products that they can be done from the seeds.
It really is fascinating, especially when you think that pretty well wherever you go, particularly in the Paphos area, you're almost bound to see carob trees just everywhere. So this is happening then, you said, on the 11th of September, and people can just, turn up at Anoira village and they will see signposts to where all these events are happening?
Exactly, and also have taken a lot of care about the accessibility this year. So we will have big parking places outside the village, and the people are going to be transferred to the festival area by a small train. So they don't have to walk, they don't have to worry of where they're going to put the car. The village inside is going to be very quiet, so people and children can walk around without wondering about cars or stairs or anything like this. So accessibility has been a major consideration in the organization of this event. Also a lot of innovation. You're going to see products that you have never seen before, like cosmetics made of carob syrup. And a lot of workshops, as I said before, with recycling as well. Like old bottles will become lanterns with decorations of carobs and carob seeds. Seeds will be used for decoration of paper bags as well. So we will promote the use of paper bags instead of using plastic bags during the festival. And also a lot of arts and crafts. All of these, the people, they can do them free of charge. The workshops are going to be open from 11 in the morning until 7 in the afternoon. They are open to families, to anybody who is interested, while we have 24 exhibitors selling all products made with carob. And of course, all of them, they're very hospitable, and they will be sharing some treats with the people so they can taste them before they buy them.
Well, I know that Anoyera village is so picturesque, and it's good that the cars won't be going in, because if I recall correctly, the roads are very narrow there. So that's September the 11th from 11:30 in the morning. Is this online somewhere? People can go and have a look and see if they'd like to join you?
Well, we have created a page through the network for the festival. You can also find information at the Facebook page of Anoyera Village.
So that's all the details that you will be able to find if you go to either the Anoyera Village or the Trudos Network Facebook pages. All the details are there, and you can go and join in the fun. Iula Michailidou, many thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
At the CVAR in Old Nicosia next week, there's an exhibition I urge you to go and see. It's co-organised by the embassies of Poland and Ukraine here in Cyprus, and it's called Mom, I Don't Want War. To tell us what's in the exhibition, it's a warm welcome to the Ambassador of Poland, Irena Lichniarowicz-Augustin, and the Ambassador of Ukraine, Ruslan Nimczynski. Irena, tell me about the drawings that Poland is putting into this exhibition, because I think they're from archives of the Second World War. Tell me about them.
Yes, this is, as you mentioned, the Polish-Ukrainian archival project initiated by the Polish State Archives in cooperation with our Ukrainian partners. And as for Poland, these are historical drawings of Polish children from gathered in 1946, which are a record of their experiences during the Second World War and the Nazi German occupation of 1939-45. And these are really, in fact, selected from the total number of more than 7,000 pictures, which are in the collection of the Polish archives.
And if we come to you, Ruslan, that's archived from many years, 80-odd years ago, but you've collected drawings of children who are right now suffering the effects of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Where did you get these pictures from?
Well, the majority of those pictures coming from the web portal. We understand that, as you may have seen, those images of children spending many hours in the underground stations of Kharkiv, Kiev. So children, of course, wishing to express themselves, to communicate their emotions about what is going on in Ukraine. And of course, the best way they do it is through drawing, and this is something which is very popular now in Ukraine, meaning that many people start to do arts, start to express themselves different ways, and specifically when we talk about war, the most painful images of war are about children. So this is exactly what is important in terms of this project, is to have children drawings, children emotions being made public to everyone, to see how children feel this, the way they felt it long ago during the Second World War, and the way they feel now when we have the repetition of that tragedy happening.
The amazing thing to me is that if you look at the psychology behind this, almost any psychiatrist or psychologist will tell you that a traumatized child can somehow come to terms with the trauma by drawing. It's cathartic. Does that come over in these drawings that you're exhibiting?
I think so. When we look at both of these, at the pictures and the drawings from 1946 and now under the Russian occupation with the invasion, you see a lot of similarities. You see a lot of expression of kind of almost sometimes not the same, but same looking images, showing fear, showing despair, showing lack of hope. But on the other hand, as you say, it's a kind of a catharsis that through the drawing the emotions come out, and they also at some point show hope for the better future, for a future, of peace and joy, for a normal future, for a happy child. And this comes out at some of the images when they start making colorful images, with yellow, red, blue, green, like they imagine their house that is rebuilt with the flowers, with the trees. And it gives hope to everybody, and just reminds us that we want happy children around us and with us,
I think I'm right in saying that this exhibition is on all the way through until the 18th of September, from the 13th. But then what happens to the pictures afterwards, particularly the Ukrainian pictures? I don't suppose you can sell the archived Polish ones, but I imagine that there is a way of raising funds to help the children of Ukraine.
Definitely we are interested in making these pictures public as much as we can here in Cyprus, so that our Cypriot friends could feel the pain of those Ukrainian kids, of those Polish kids. And of course this is the best way to have those exhibitions participate in some funds gathering events, since we have many children who are looking for assistance, who are looking for help. The best way would be also using the new technologies as NFT and others, so that to allocate funds to help people. And I think this is the right way to do that.
So will these be going on sale afterwards? I think there's an online site where people can see a lot of them, aren't there?
If I may add, yes, of course, what we present in, because the exhibition has already been presented, for example, in many cities in Poland, now is going around the world. It means, of course, we do not have the originals of the drawings. We have the presentation of these drawings to show it to as many people as possible, because the originals, of course, naturally are in one place. But as we mentioned, they will be combined together, and Mr. Ambassador, as Ruslan mentioned, in the world's kind of largest manifesto collage on the war in Ukraine. This will be then sold on a charity digital auction, and the money will be given to for humanitarian aid to children affected by the current war in Ukraine. Another thing is that really we want together once again invite you. The exhibition will be open in Sfar to the public from Tuesday 13th. We do an official opening on Monday, but it will be officially open to the public since Tuesday, and then until the 18th of September. And it's the early hours because it's from 9:30 till 5 o'clock.
So people have plenty of time to go down to the CVAR and have a look at those paintings, drawings of children who've been traumatised by war. Mum, I Don't Want War is the title, and our thanks to their excellencies, the Polish and Ukrainian ambassadors, for telling us all about it.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
finally last week the minimum wage was introduced. Well, it's not actually going to be introduced until the beginning of next year, but at least the legislation was agreed upon. We've talked about it before, and there are a lot of omissions. So I've asked political analyst Andreas Haralambos to join me on this week's programme to discuss what's there and what perhaps should be there but isn't. Andreas, what's your take on the way that this minimum wage has finally been introduced?
Well, the first take is that this is certainly not a complete legislation. There are multiple black holes in there. There are many very important parts of the legislation that are missing. They're totally missing. What is there right now is a number that is not satisfactory for anyone, neither the employers or the employees. And definitely some of the working teams, the syndicates, are not pleased with the number. And there are also other parts of the legislation that actually avoid to give the right of the minimum salary to certain employees. And this is not something that is actually granting the right to the minimum wage to the totality of the working force. And we don't deem it to be right or just or democratic in any way.
What surprised me was that, bearing in mind the structure of many working people's lives, they came up with €940 a month without actually, I believe, saying how many hours that involved. Why didn't we just set a minimum hourly rate?
This is one of the black holes, maybe the most important black hole. There is no certain reason, there is no clear reason why there was not a minimum hourly range. And let's be clear, when we talk about 940, we don't talk about 940 euros that an employee would take home. It's actually 837 after the cuts for the relevant taxes. So the real number is 837. Well, that would mean that in a democratic country, in a just country, will translate to 38 hours of work per week. That would translate to 550 per hour. But this is not the case here, because this is not granted in the legislation. This is not claimed in the legislation. So it's not clear. No one is answering this question, and it's probably the most important question to be answered.
So let me get this clear. I thought people who earned below a certain amount didn't pay taxes.
This is not the case. Everyone pays taxes. Everyone has to pay taxes. We're talking about the rights, and we're talking about what the employees themselves have to do. We have to pay the taxes, but again, we have to represent it equally and justly in the labour market.
All right, now then, what taxes do they pay? I was talking about income tax, but I suppose there are things like social insurance.
Social insurance and the general health system taxes, which amounts up to 25 euros per month, and the other taxes are about 87, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the numbers here. No.
Okay, but they don't pay income tax, at least, do they?
No.
That was what I was meaning.
Because yearly they won't go beyond the limit. There is no way to go beyond the limit. We're talking about 10,000 euros per year for a working person.
As you look at the rising cost of living, has anybody worked out what is the very basic minimum you need to not be in poverty, as it were?
Well, if we ask someone from the ministry or someone who has been there in the committee that they were coming up with that number, the 940 number, they would claim that it actually abides by the proposal of the European Union. The median salary in Cyprus now is claimed to be about 1,573 euros. It is clear that 10 years before it was higher, and this is something of real concern to us, because salaries should be going up, not down. There are other data that say that the distance between the lowest average salary and the highest average salary is about 9,000 euros, and this is another huge issue about how labor market in Cyprus works. But, okay, the median salary is 1,573 euros. The proposal from the European Union for the minimum wage was to be arranged at about 60% of the median salary. Well, the median salary does not represent the inflation in the country, and it doesn't mean that we have to abide by the proposal if that proposal does not make sense in our labor market, in our economy. Maybe in other countries that's just. In Cyprus, when we talk about rents of small flats or studios in Limassol or they're sky high, you can't find a small flat with less than 600 euros. You just can't. If we are alone at home, if we are single, we have to pay at about 150, 200 euros per hour. That's the amount of the minimum salary, rent and power. I mean, that only says how just this number is.
All right, it's going to be difficult to buy food. Now, let me ask you something else, and that is that, as I understood it, the minimum wage that's been agreed is not payable to anybody until they have worked for 6 months at a particular place. What is to stop our super clever employers from hiring somebody and then at the end of 6 months letting them go and hiring somebody else? In that case, they wouldn't be paying anywhere near 940, would they?
Again, another prominent black hole in the legislation that does not actually, again, give a reason why that should be. Yes, 6 months, the employees will take 885 euros instead of 940. So the clean income for them would be below 800. And yes, there is nothing that says that the employer should keep that employee for more than 6 months and raise their salary. There's nothing in the legislation that secures the position of the employee. But there is another claim in the legislation that talks about a committee that will be checking over the employers, what they should be doing, their responsibilities. Again, we might think that this committee would be responsible to put the employers under the radar and tell them, you cannot just fire this person after 6 months because you don't want to pay the extra salary, which is again low, but there is nothing in the text of the legislation that says so.
And we have to bear in mind, of course, that a large number of fairly low-paid employees work in the tourism industry, and an awful lot of establishments that are running in the tourist industry only open for 6 months of the year.
Well, the market of the tourism industry is self-regulated by, some unofficial laws, some agreements that were put down a few months ago because of the crisis of the lack of personnel in the hotels and other parts of the industry. So they've been proposing and they've been claiming that they're going to be giving much higher salaries for the people that will be working in the tourism industry. This is again not secured by any legislation, and we know for sure that the employers are not being checked or controlled, or I don't know, they don't actually claim any responsibility over how they treat their employees. And we have been observing multiple negative comments from employees, especially from abroad, that come in Cyprus to work.
And let's talk about third country nationals, because it is mostly they who are employed in the sectors that are not even included in the minimum wage, and I refer to domestic workers, agricultural workers and so on. So actually it's not a minimum wage, is it? It's a sort of insurance for only certain sectors of the working population that they'll get a little bit more than they have been getting.
There has been a legislation in place since 2012 that was only covering 7 categories of the labor force. That was, of course, not a complete legislation either. The number there was 924. We're talking about 10 years ago. It has only risen 6 euros for the past 10 years, and the inflation has risen over 60%. But yes, one of the main problems that those two legislations shared is the fact that they don't cover all of the categories of the labor force, all the working people.
Is that legal according to EU regulations if you look at the discrimination regulations?
it shouldn't be. I cannot claim for sure, but it doesn't sound fair or democratic according to any law. It shouldn't sound legal or democratic. And the fact that migrants, third country nationals, are being targeted clearly on the most recent text is something that the minister himself has accepted. And he gave a mostly ridiculous answer to the question, why are they being targeted? And that answer had to do with his aunt that has a person to help him in the house, and she does not receive enough to pay her the minimum salary, so she shouldn't pay her the minimum salary. That was the answer the minister gave when he was asked the question why people that clean new homes and so on shouldn't receive the minimum salary. The answer was, my aunt in Andrea cannot pay that salary.
How ridiculous. That's absolutely extraordinary. Andreas, we're going to have to end it there because we're a bit short of time. But do you think there's any chance at all that in the course of the coming months, people may look at this legislation and say it needs tweaking, it's not fair?
That should happen. The minister himself has said that this is going to happen. When he was asked what is going to happen with those black holes in the legislation, he said, oh, we know that there are black holes in the legislation and we're going to cover them up. And when we asked how, why are they there, how are you going to do it and when, he said, oh, we're going to do it. We just have to ask politely, ask through activism, and try to take what's more just.
And not hold our breath. Thank you very much indeed for joining me on the programme. Andreas Haralampos is a political analyst telling us there about the ups and downs of the much touted so-called minimum wage. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.